What is going on, everybody, in the Nerd Crew podcast? I am your host, Andy York. Welcome back to episode 21 of our podcast. We are so glad that you are joining us and listening to us, whether you are on not Facebook, YouTube. That's the one I'm doing. Whether you are joining us on YouTube Live or on our podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, and Podbean occasionally, but not a lot because it's a pain in the butt sometimes. But as always, I am joined by the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend himself, the Robin to my Batman. I think I've used that one already. The Harley Quinn to my Joker.
I like that.
Jason Lee. Jason, how are you doing?
Pretty good. I'm excited. On our 21st episode, our podcast has turned old enough to drink alcohol.
Yeah, we are legal now. We are no longer a minor. We are legal, which is great.
Indeed.
So, but if you don't know, if you are new to our podcast and our YouTube channel, make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because we are, if you haven't already seen our channel update video, we are going to do more stuff in the future. We're not going into the future. I wish we would. We'd make a lot of money doing that. But we're going to start doing some things in the future as well. But if you are new to our podcast, basically we like to talk about Marvel, DC, Star Wars, basically anything nerdy that you can think of. We will talk about on this podcast. Later this week, there'll be another video going out on Friday about another project that I am starting. That we are, well, not just me personally, but me and somebody else. We are starting something very soon, and we're very excited to talk about that. So that'll be out on Friday. But yeah, we have a lot of stuff coming up in the future, so we're very excited about that. But before we dive into the fun stuff of our podcast, Jason, what are you into this week?
This week is finally the week that I've started on Stranger Things, a show that everybody in the world has watched except for me. And I'm 5 episodes in right now, and I'm really liking it. I like all the characters. I think it's really engaging. I think it's an engaging blend of kind of like a horror mystery, but also, adventure and a little bit of sci-fi too. But I really like the creative team. I think all the performances are solid, so I'm really looking forward to finishing it. I've heard it's a very bingeable show.
It is. It is a very bingeable show. I actually started it. I don't think I ever finished it. I think I kind of, after season 2 or something like that, I kind of got...
Well, I think season 2 is the last one they made. Because season 3 comes out in July.
Yeah, I don't think I finished season 2.
Oh, yeah.
I think I got halfway through and just quit. So.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. What I'm into this week is actually a new Marvel Netflix show that came out this past Friday. Punisher 2. Mm-hmm. Punisher season 2, really. It is a joyride, I guess you could say. It's kind of like a roller coaster. It has its ups and downs. I haven't finished it yet. I'm hoping to finish it at some point this week. When I'm watching it, so I'm looking forward to that. But it does pick up in a weird spot, but it kind of works as well. And it's a really interesting dynamic and take they are taking it. So I'm very excited to finish it at some point. Just finding the time to binge watch it. It's not as good as Daredevil season 3 started off because I couldn't stop watching that one once I started it.
Agreed.
This one I can kind of take a break, and sometimes I feel like I need to take a break from it because of the violence and like how jacked up it gets. Sometimes I just kind of take a step away and go do something else. So it's a lot of fun, but we are looking forward to that as well. So this episode, if you haven't already seen our tweets or anything about it, we are discussing all things DC. Specifically what we would have done differently. We're going to look at the good, we're going to look at the bad, and we're going to look at the ugly. Unfortunately, it kind of weighs one way more than the other. But we are going to try to be more positive on this episode at some points. As much as we can, we're going to try to be as positive as we can.
Right.
That's all we're trying to do is just be positive. And any criticisms we have is constructive. So we just want this to get better. We think they're on the right track, sort of, and we'll jump into all that here in a minute. Before we get into that, though, we actually saw on Twitter this morning that two Marvel movies are up for nominations for the Oscars, and we're going to talk about this very briefly because me and you both could not care less about the Oscars. The only way we'd watch is if the Avengers are going to be the ones to host it, which is the rumor right now. That they're going to be the ones to host it. That's the only way I'd watch it. But we have Infinity War and Black Panther that are up for different nominations. Actually, Infinity War is only up for Best Visual Effects, while Black Panther is up for 7 nominations. They're up for Best Original Score, Sound Editing, Sound Mixing, Costume Design, Production Design, Best Original Song, All the Stars, and Best Picture of the Year.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. Which some of it is deserving. Some of it is not deserving, which we can jump into that and talk about that.
Again, I've touched on it before. I'm not the biggest fan of Black Panther. I think it's fine. I think it's middle of the road Marvel movie, and I think it's probably one of their lesser origin stories. I do think the one that stands out to me that I think they could deserve is Best Original Score.
Yeah.
Because I think that the score for that movie was really, really neat.
Yeah.
And probably the best one in the MCU so far. It's up there with the Infinity War score, which is also super, super good. So I can see it possibly winning that. I don't think it deserves Best Picture. But, Bohemian Rhapsody is up there too. And from what I understand, I don't think that deserves Best Picture either.
Yeah. There's a lot of...
I don't really have any stock in the Oscars. Pretty much at all.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever happens, happens. As a Marvel fan, I think it would be really, really exciting to see Black Panther win an award.
Yeah.
Because this is still our home team.
Right.
And it's really fun to support that, even though I don't think it's one of their best movies. I absolutely would love for Infinity War to win Best VFX, which I don't know if you already mentioned that or not, but that's the one award that Infinity War is up for.
Yeah, and it's going up against Solo, which Solo should not beat it. Christopher Robin, which shouldn't beat it. Ready Player One, which I don't think should beat it. I mean, it wasn't. There was a lot of bad spots in that movie too. Right. But The Man, I think The Man could.
Oh, First Man?
First Man, sorry, not The Man. Got my wrestling brain on. The First Man, I think First Man could actually do it because it's really good. If you haven't checked that out, go watch that movie. But yeah, I don't think I'm all for Black Panther winning Best Picture. But kind of how as Gump pointed out in the chat, if Logan didn't really win Best Picture of the Year and The Dark Knight didn't win Best Picture of the Year, I don't think Black Panther should really. Being like, I don't know, it's like different years, better movies, things like that.
Right.
This year's movies weren't that great. Like, there wasn't really a big standout movie. Because I think it's like Bohemian Rhapsody's in it, and Vice, and...
The Favorite and Roma, both of which I've heard are incredible.
Yeah, and then you have the, let me make it up.
Green Book?
That one, but let me look it up before I make a mistake in saying it.
Yeah, the reason that I would say comparing movies to other movies, like comparing Logan to Black Panther and saying Logan should have won it, which I agree, Logan is a far better movie. I think it's difficult to do that because the Oscars never make the right decisions.
Yeah.
And same with the Grammys and same with all of these huge award shows.
It's bullcrap. Yeah.
Right.
So you have Bohemian Rhapsody, Green Book, Black Panther, Vice, The Favorite, A Star Is Born, which could win it, because that's actually not that bad of a movie. I went and saw that. Then the Black KK Klansman, or whatever, however you pronounce that movie, and then Roma. So there's not that much competition out there, but I still don't think Black Panther will be the one to win it.
I don't. I do think it's historic and exciting that it's been nominated for so many things, just as a fan of Marvel Studios.
Yeah. And I could see them winning like best costume design as well, because the costume designs in the movie was actually really cool.
Production design, at least it's not up for VFX like it was for Golden Globes.
Yeah,
if I remember.
Yeah, but like we said, we are rooting for both Black Panther and Infinity War to win in all their categories because that's a win for Marvel, and really not Marvel, like superhero movies in general, because I don't think they really get the respect that they deserve in in these different areas, because
Definitely.
I think Civil War should have won a bunch of awards as well, but I'm a Marvel fanboy. What do you expect? So,
And I can see why, even though I'm excited that they finally are, I can see why the Academy doesn't take superhero films as seriously. Because they're not high art.
right.
And even if I were hosting the Academy Awards, I wouldn't give Infinity War or Black Panther a Best Picture nomination.
No, yeah.
Because do I think they're the best movies of the year? No. Even though I'm really invested in them and I like them a whole lot, I think that their point is more to be summer blockbusters.
Mm-hmm.
And do I think Infinity War is one of the best summer blockbusters of all time?
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So on a different sort of scale, I think that's where the Marvel movies function. And I don't think that, the Oscars are the decider of legitimacy in, making of a movie.
Yeah.
So.
Plus, like, they're looking for a specific style of movie and a specific type of movie. So, like, they're not going to put in a superhero movie. They're not going to put in, most of the time, an animation movie. They're not going to put in all these other types. It's basically got to be like a drama or some sort of like movie like that normally gets nominated for Best Picture and that normally wins Best Picture. And plus, if Dwayne The Rock Johnson's in it, it's automatically his. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. I'm not a big fan of the Oscars. I'm not a big fan of awards like that. I think our awards that we hand out are better than theirs are, because my list would have had Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse as Best Picture of the Year nominee, because that should have been one of the best pictures of the year.
Now, I thought that was nominated for Best Animated Picture.
Yeah, but I think it's still Best Picture of the Year,
Maybe.
In general. I think it's the best movie of the year.
I believe it's going up against Incredibles 2, and I'll be really disappointed if it beats out Incredibles. I mean, if Incredibles 2 beats it out.
Yeah, I don't think it will. I really don't think it will.
Because that's an award that goes to Disney almost every time.
Yeah. Which, most of the time, it's rightfully so that it goes to Disney, because Disney normally makes like top quality animation movies.
Right, but I would love to see Spider-Verse take that W, because I think it's probably my favorite film of the year.
Yeah.
Even as I've touched on before, even if I'm more invested in Infinity War, I think Spider-Verse is the best film that I saw this year.
Yeah, by far. And if you haven't checked out last week's episode, was it last week's episode? No, the week before that. I'm all confused on my weeks. We did a breakdown of our favorite movies of the year and what we're looking forward to, so go check that out.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had Spider-Man 2 as our favorite movie of the year, or Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse as our favorite movie of the year, second favorite movie of the year, and Infinity War our favorite, just because of the 10-year build into that. So, but yeah, we are not looking forward to the Oscars unless the Avengers are hosting it, and then I'm looking forward to it because that means something's coming. So
right, if they host it, there's a good chance for new footage.
Yeah.
And also, very quickly, there could very well be new footage for either Captain Marvel or Avengers, or, obviously there's going to be new footage for all kinds of movies at the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not going to suggest go watch the Super Bowl, because I know everyone's already going to watch it, but I just want to put it out there that there could be new Endgame footage.
Probably like around halftime is when you'll see that the most. So
right.
Check that out. I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped a Captain Marvel and an Avengers Endgame in the same. Because I think we're getting a Shazam one as well. We got a Shazam one last week. We got a Shazam one Sunday in the NFC Championship game. So that's when that dropped. So yeah, that was because I was watching it and didn't realize that was new. Because I'm invested in Shazam, but not as much as everything else. So speaking of Shazam, I think that's a good segue into our main topic and what we're going to be talking about for the most of the podcast. And listen, if you have listened to any of our episodes before or watched any of our live streams, we lean, I'd say this for at least me, I'm probably speaking for Jason as well, we lean more heavily towards the Marvel movies, by far. But we love both Marvel and DC. And the reason why I think we are harder on DC is because it sometimes feels like they're not really trying. And it seems like they're really just rushing things out.
Right.
Which, hey, they got to make their money, so that's how they're going to make their money, whatever. I grew up, my favorite superhero for years, 15, 16 years was Batman. Batman was my favorite superhero of all time. And so, like, I want to see all these characters do well. So that's why we're doing this. We're not doing this to make fun. We're not doing this to be jerks. We're doing this because we actually want, to put our ideas out there and just to talk about how we would have done differently the worlds of DC or whatever they're calling them now.
Mm-hmm. First of all, we wouldn't have named it Worlds of DC.
I'd have just called it DCEU.
That's a terrible name.
Yes, just DCEU.
The DCEU works.
Or just the DC Universe. Like, short and sweet.
Right.
The DCU. Yeah.
Or you could just say DC films. I don't know why it's got to have an MCU.
Right.
Like the CIA or the FBI.
We will get into that here in a minute.
Sure.
But so what I figured we would do is, first off, we would talk about right now, the current product right now. We'll talk about the good, we'll talk about the bad, we'll talk about the ugly, and then we'll talk about all the things that we would have done differently, because I think, so we'll do it that way. So I'll let you start with, as of right now, because we just had Aquaman come out a month ago, what is something good, or what are the good things that DC are doing right now with their movies? Or with some of their movies, not all, because they're all kind of different, but not really. So, what are some good things that they're doing?
I think that Aquaman was a very small step in the right direction in having a more creator-led focus, and giving a project to a director, to a particular director, and saying, "Here, exercise your vision for this character." I feel like Aquaman did a decent job with that. With the visuals, with the world, with the story. And James Wan, his vision worked to some degree. Unlike David Ayer with Suicide Squad or Zack Snyder with a lot of other DC movies. And that's where their big mistake with Justice League really comes into focus, which we've talked about before and we'll talk about a little bit more, where they had both Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon working on Justice League, and it just became this Frankenstein's monster of a movie that felt like it was developed by a boardroom instead of a person. And not a very good boardroom, not a very smart boardroom at that. So that's the number one thing I can say. I don't think it's something that they've perfected, obviously, but having that creator-driven focus is something that I could see them really benefiting from in the future. So they've taken a small step in the right direction. Apart from that, I don't really see almost anything that they've done very well, or they've done in a standout way. There are some things that they're kind of average at, occasionally, but like costume design.
Yeah.
Their costume design is decent.
For the most part.
Sometimes.
For the most part. I think for me, like kind of what you said, of like Aquaman is taking them into the right direction. And it's not like Aquaman by far is not like a great movie or even like a good superhero movie, but what it is like DC, I think, because I think we're seeing this with Aquaman, and then I think we're also seeing it with Shazam, is that DC is finally realizing that they don't need to take themselves too seriously, and so they're kind of letting all of these like Aquaman, you can't really take Aquaman too seriously. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Shazam, like a guy that says Shazam and then goes from a kid to a superhero. Like, you can't really take that real seriously as well. So I think that they are slowly starting to realize, okay, we're a superhero, like, we do superhero movies. We're not going to take ourselves too seriously. We're just going to go out there and we're going to tell this story. And I feel like, Aquaman didn't tell the best story, but at least they were telling a story. And, like, somewhat of a compelling story. Like all the other DC movies, they haven't really done a compelling story. You could have done one with Batman versus Superman, but then we'll jump into that here really soon. I think we just killed Jason with that one. Sorry for the audio listeners. Jason just about died. He just about died. So, but I'll continue my thought. They aren't taking themselves too seriously. They are realizing that they are a superhero movie and that they aren't really this big elaborate thing. So I think that's one good thing that DC is doing is they aren't taking they aren't taking themselves too seriously, which I think is always a great thing. Are you all right?
Oh yeah, I'm great.
You sure?
I'll make it. You said something about the storyline in BVS, and that kind of choked me up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because to call BVS a film with a story, I think, is a very difficult thing.
Yes.
To do.
It might be a lie. It might be a lie. I think it is a lie. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is the definition of a lie. So, I'll give you a minute to kind of reset everything, because we almost had a guy die on YouTube. We'd have made money then. But I think that's some of the good things that DC is doing is that. So, now let's go from the good to the bad. And by bad, I mean there's a lot of bad. And that there's a difference between bad and ugly. So,
right.
Some of the bad I feel like DC is doing is, which we'll talk about this also later, like some of their world building and some of their character building, and actually most of their character building, is not good. Like they aren't doing anything really productive to, build their characters, build their worlds, to tell the stories that they are somewhat trying to tell. So I don't think that is anything good. I think that's sort of the bad that they're telling. What about you? What do you think are some of the bad things that DC is doing?
Yeah. Now that I'm back and not dead. Yeah, I think there's a lot of places that they went wrong. I think you already touched on jumping into crossovers without having established your characters first. So, for example, Man of Steel wasn't exactly a strong start for Superman, but we got somewhat of a handle on what his character is going to be like.
Right.
Even though I don't think that was the right characterization to jump into. So jumping into BVS after that and introducing Batman and Wonder Woman and Lex Luthor and Doomsday, introducing this whole cast of characters and just kind of like throwing them in there into a story where you don't really give Batman a whole lot to do and Wonder Woman's just in there at the end. And Lex Luthor is just a super weak and weird characterization that absolutely didn't work out. And then by the time I got to Justice League, we were still basically at square one with every character, including Superman, which this was his third movie at this point. So moving so quickly into crossovers when you haven't built up
your characters,
compelling characters with arcs or really anything to do but just show up and fight something, isn't interesting. It's not engaging at all.
No.
And I feel like that's part of the reason Justice League made so little money, was because nobody was coming there to see a character they were invested in. And that kind of leads into my second point, is banking on recognizability.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if Justice League were a movie, or if the DCEU were a universe based around original characters, nobody would be watching it. But the fact that these are the most recognizable characters in comic book history, up until a certain point at least, because Marvel has really grown their brand in the public eye. It's a slow death. It's a slow death that's taking place. But, you can't bank on the fact that people are going to go see a Superman movie just because it's Superman for very long.
Yeah.
And by his third movie, he wasn't any more engaging than he was in his first. So why should people come back to see it?
He didn't even care anymore. Right. The actor himself didn't really even care anymore. So
definitely. So they really missed the opportunity to fix a lot of mistakes in BVS.
Yeah.
Just poor casting for almost every character. I think Gal Gadot works. I think Jason Momoa works. But you have to have strong castings at the center of your universe that go outward into strong castings throughout the universe.
So not Will Smith as Deadshot?
Right. But Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn actually works.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a somewhat strong casting, but and then unfaithful characterizations, as we've touched on before. So a Superman that's kind of pulled more from Injustice than anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
A Batman that's just a total idiot, and you can't take him seriously as the world's greatest detective because
he's not.
He doesn't make any intelligent decisions ever that are based in reality, or as Ben Shapiro would say, facts and logic. And then a Flash that's just annoying and not really pulled from anywhere in particular. And then they just completely revamped Aquaman.
Yeah,
and made
there's not.
And then, as I said before, just bad world building.
Yes.
And just having no idea what you're doing.
I never would have thought we'd have had a Ben Shapiro reference on this podcast, but that was...
I'll keep bringing them.
That was great. That was great. My brother... Now it's time to talk about the fun part, the ugly of DC. And there has been...
Which is most of it.
Well, yeah, but there have been two major ugly things that popped out in my head. Every DC movie.
Right.
Every DC movie.
And not even the CGI, but just the way the visuals are presented.
Yes.
In all of the Zack Snyder movies, everything just looks gray.
Yes.
And there are so many interesting things that you can do with visuals, and I think that visuals is something that Marvel has gotten mostly right with their movies, especially Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is such a colorful and fun and visually engaging movie. And the VFX in that are great. Because the directors know how to use them and they know where to use them. But in DC movies, it's almost all the time just put this thing here.
Just throw it together.
Because we want to do that. And there's not really going to be any style, and everything's going to look gray because we're going for this realistic, gritty and engagingly human universe that doesn't work on any of those levels.
Yeah.
So it just looks like Zack Snyder movies.
Which aren't good.
Right, even Wonder Woman.
Yeah. So that's the one reason why I liked Aquaman, is because it had color in it. Like, it had a lot of vibrant colors in it that worked because it's Aquaman under the sea. So
Aquaman worked on that level.
Yeah, so that works really well. And then the other ugly is one that I have talked about very often, and is one I keep bringing up and mention. And it was about to be the death of you. And I've talked about it on even Gump's podcast. Batman versus Superman was probably, for me, and I know what yours is. Well, you actually probably have too. But Batman versus Superman for me was probably the ugliest thing that they put out. Because it had so much potential. It had so much potential because, like, I remember seeing the trailer and thinking this is going to be probably the coolest movie I've ever seen. Like, it's Batman and Superman, they're trying to kill each other. Like, this is going to be great. And then we get there, and it is awful.
Yes.
I mean, awful. You have, like we mentioned, you have Wonder Woman in it for, like, barely any time. And then at the very end, she just shows up and, like, starts killing everything. And then you have Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg for 30 seconds all together combined.
Right.
World building. Yes, world building. And then you have the worst Lex Luthor you could possibly have. Ben Affleck sucked. Henry Cavill was not that great.
Right.
So it was just, all of it together was just complete trash. Like, all of it together was just complete trash. And so, like, I've only been mad at two movies that I was at in the theater. Transformers The Last Night, because that movie sucked. And then this movie. Like, this movie was just that bad. So that was the one that stuck out to me as being the ugly part of DC that I think DC would like to forget. But, yeah. And I think I know your two. Justice League and Suicide Squad.
Well, Justice League even more than Suicide Squad. I think Suicide Squad is a more technically incompetent film somehow than Justice League. Justice League angers me more because it's about the center of the universe. It's about the most iconic characters.
It's the thing you should have been building up to for 7 years, not 2 years.
Right. No, and if we're based on recognizability and cultural impact, the Avengers are the only other team that come close to the Justice League in comic books, and still the Justice League are, quite a ways more important in comic book history than the Avengers. So really, if you would have said 20 years ago which movie was going to work more, it totally should have been Justice League. But it's completely the other way around. And Justice League makes every mistake that the Avengers nailed and got right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hate Justice League more than I hate Suicide Squad.
I'm just saying a lot, because you despise Suicide Squad.
I despise both of them. They're both two of my least favorite films ever made.
See, I don't mind... The thing I don't mind about Suicide Squad is, like, I know it sucks. But, like, it's one of those... It's like my Batman and Robin. Like, it sucks so bad that it's actually comical at times and funny. So like that doesn't bother me as much as like Justice League bothered me and Batman vs Superman, because I think Suicide Squad wasn't taking itself as seriously, which is totally fine. Like Batman vs Superman was like, they were trying to be like, this was a drama. This wasn't a superhero movie. This was them trying to be like this dark, gritty drama that didn't work.
Yeah.
Justice League was the same way, and it did not work at all. So that's why I'm alright with Suicide Squad more than I am with the other two, but they all still suck. So
I think Suicide Squad is more artistically coherent just by proxy, because it's not artistically coherent and it's really all over the place and just terrible. But at least it was made by one person with one vision, kind of.
Yeah.
But Justice League is just like one of the most artistically disparate movies.
Yes.
Ever, in a bad way.
Yeah, because you couldn't have two more polar opposite directors. And Zack Snyder and I almost said Josh Brolin. He didn't direct it. He tried to kill it. Whatever his name is, I'm drawing a blank on it.
Joss Whedon.
Josh Whedon, thank you. But like you couldn't have two more polar opposite directors, because Avengers wasn't dark and gritty. Like Avengers was. It wasn't colorful either, but like it had the perfect tone of what it was trying to tell.
It was an ensemble, action adventure comedy.
Yeah.
With strong characters.
Yes.
And
because Joss Whedon built the world to what it was.
Right, and Joss Whedon was going into this, dark colored film that didn't really have a whole lot of character going for it. That was supposed to be like this big epic thing that Zack Snyder always wants to make. And he tried to make it an engaging character drama. Yeah. But he was going into it with absolutely nothing. It's like, here, build me this intricate castle out of Play-Doh.
Yeah.
This big, like, gray lump of Play-Doh that I have given you. This is my movie, and I need you... Well, Zack Snyder didn't say that, but Warner Brothers said, this is the movie that's been left for us. Now that Zack Snyder's left the project, so we need you to turn this into something really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously that didn't work out. And I feel like Joss Whedon just like slept through.
Probably.
Because I think he's talented, even though he's made mistakes before.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't really have anything to work with at all there. So
I think and I don't want to draw this narrative like, well, DC's not doing this like Marvel is, blah 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 blah. But Marvel has found the formula that is working. And so, like, I don't see, like, if DC copies not everything, but, like, some of their models, I don't have a problem with it, because if it's working, it's working. So, like, I think DC needs to find a director like the Russo brothers. Like, someone that can take, because what is so great about Infinity War is you have all of these characters, like, all of these massive characters who have their own movie. So, like, you have Black Panther, you have... Captain America, Tony Stark, you have Thor, the Hulk, you have the Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, all of these different characters. But yet, when they show up, it's kind of like they're in their own movie. Like, it's not like this one specific tone of a movie. They get to shine in the elements that they're the strongest in.
Right.
And so that's what works so well, because in Justice League, really nobody shines. Wonder Woman shines, I think, in that movie. For the most part. She's the one, I think, that does the best overall out of any of them. Now, that's not saying... That's like picking one turd over another turd, but it's not as bad of a turd. Like, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
I could see her, like... And I understand Infinity War isn't an Avengers movie. It's a Thanos movie. And it has the Thanos feel. But still, when all these other characters pop up, they still have their own. They're not. The movie isn't making it hard for us to watch them. Like, they are intertwining different characters into their movie and making it work extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I love about, like, because they saved, in my opinion, they saved Captain America. Because, like, the first Captain America movie was okay. Like, it wasn't the greatest, but it was okay. But then, like, the jump between Captain America and Winter Soldier was, like, this massive leap that worked really well. And then they understand, they understand Captain America. They understand Bucky. They understand Falcon. They understand, even, like, Tony and War Machine and all these characters in Civil War as well, so I think that's why it works really well. And yes, this is Turd Talk now. We are back to Turd Talk.
Yeah, we're gonna rebrand our channel.
Yes, to the Turd Talk channel.
And that's really interesting because something that DC could have used from the very beginning is a Kevin Feige, who is a unifying presence in the storytelling and in the creativity, so that when you come together with an event like Infinity War that's pulling from so many disparate storylines and movies, you have a Kevin Feige to say, this is what we can do here, and this is what would work here. And then you have very talented directors and writers like the Russo brothers and Marcus and McFeely who are working on that project so that, you can kind of guide into a unifying movie that's going to work and that's going to be coherent.
Yeah.
And DC has never had a Kevin Feige.
No. I feel like DC hasn't really been pushing, like, since Iron Man, we have been going towards Infinity War.
Yeah.
And the Endgame. Like, we've been going towards Endgame. Really, like, Man of Steel, I don't feel like we were going towards anything.
Man of Steel, I thought, was created to be a one-off.
Yeah.
And then it went towards BVS. Suicide Squad was just thrown out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then Wonder Woman was created to set up Justice League.
Yeah. And then Justice League was just thrown out there.
Right. So that's an issue with their world building, is that it's not really going anywhere.
Mm-mm.
And everything that everywhere that it's going is just fan speculation.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths. Nobody knows because the story isn't moving in any direction.
Right. Well, plus we're getting that in CW.
And it's not like you have to predict where the story is going.
Yeah.
Because we still don't know what's going to happen in Endgame, but there's no mobility.
Right.
In the way that they've constructed the
We
universe.
knew the general area of where we were going with Infinity War.
Yes.
But we didn't know, like, I completely thought when we were getting, like, the end of Infinity War was going to be Thanos getting, like, 4 of the stones.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't expect him to get the stones, do the snap, like, for all of that to happen. So, I knew the general area where they were going, but I really didn't know that until probably, when did the first stone pop up? Was it Captain America?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but, like, even then, you didn't know fully that's the direction they were going because it, like, that could have been just, like, the one-off because of the Tesseract,
Right.
So, you just know the general area, but now that we are on this journey, and we're basically at the end of this journey getting ready to start another one, I feel like that's the bigger payoff than what DC has given us with wherever they're heading, because I have no idea where they're heading.
And touching on that, kind of in my idea of a DC universe that would work is in the way that you build to Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
Because you wouldn't build to them in the same way that you build to the Avengers. Because the Avengers were created to be a team in the comics. They were created to work together in a certain way. And Justice League was a bunch of characters that were created separately who were put together into a team. And there are pros and cons to each way.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, with Justice League, if you did more creatively disparate movies, you have that opportunity. Because these are characters that come from different places. You could begin with a Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Flash movie. A movie for each, and just go completely different directions with each of them. And have them be director-led, creative-led efforts. I've talked about for the longest time how I would love if Superman was done by Brad Bird,
Mm-hmm.
who did The Incredibles. I feel like he could make something that is, culturally applicable, that feels like it could be happening right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I love about Spider-Man Homecoming. But something that feels, steeped in what's going on right now, something that's fun, something that gives us an engaging Superman, an enjoyable Superman, but also feels different. Yeah, also feels different from Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do a full 180 from Christopher Reeve, because he kind of nailed the character and nailed the characterization that was happening back in those days, back in the 70s when they were making those movies. And then a Batman movie by Guillermo del Toro would be amazing.
Yes, it would.
With a new villain.
Yes.
I would like. I would love Mr. Freeze, which, new villain. Because again,
as long as Arnold Schwarzenegger is playing him, I'm
right, yeah. My thoughts exactly. Yes. My thoughts exactly. And that's why I'm great at casting.
Yes.
And then a Flash movie by Edgar Wright would be beautiful. And if it was just like a visual spectacle, for the most part, with a lot of different Rogues Gallery characters, that would be all I want from a Flash movie. So, those are my specific ideas, but you could go so many different directions with the Justice League, but still have them come together. And it would be a little bit more difficult, but still have them come together creatively.
Yeah.
In a Justice League movie.
Yeah. I think, because like we've said several times, the thing that is hurting DC the most is that all of these characters have just been thrown together. Like,
yes.
Basically, they were like, all right, our DC movie is tanking, all of our funds are tanking, we just got to throw all this stuff out, blah, 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 whatever. Part of the reason why, and I hate to keep jumping from DC to Marvel, but part of the reason why I think DC or Marvel works so well is because Marvel had no other option. They were going bankrupt. So they had to come up with something to make it work, and they did. But I don't feel like they just rushed into it. You can obviously tell over the last 10 years, they have taken their time. They've mapped out where they are wanting to go. They're still mapping out where they are wanting to go in the future. And it's not this I don't feel like it's just this year-to-year basis of all right, we got to come out with these 3 movies, these 3 movies, blah blah blah, whatever. I think it's just they've mapped it out, and I think that's something that DC has not done, is mapped out anything for their for their cinematic universe at all.
Right.
And so I think that hurts them really bad.
Right now for DC, there are 20 films that are up in the air whether they're being made or not. But they've all been names that have been thrown out there by DC, maybe we'll make this movie.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll make Nightwing, Blue Beetle, Birds of Prey, Joker and Harley Quinn, Jared Leto solo Joker movie. There are just so many names that they have given to the fans, but it's maybe we'll make this one or this one or this one. With no clear, but we're going in this direction.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of which one is going to come out next. It sounds like they're actually making Birds of Prey. And obviously they're doing Shazam and Wonder Woman 2. And they're probably going to do Aquaman 2 now. But no one knows if it's going to be Man of Steel 2. No one knows if there'll ever be a Batman movie.
No.
So...
because I still think they're retconning everything, because Henry Cavill's leaving and Ben Affleck has... I don't know if he's actually leaving or not, because he's not. He said yes and then no and then yes and then no and then yes and then no. So I don't really know if he's going to do that or not. But what I would have done is kind of similar to your format of you have Man of Steel come out and you make a better version of it. You make it more of a, because and I understand that when Iron Man came out, nobody thought that they were setting up this universe until the end credit scene, and then the end credit scene set it all up.
Right, which is funny because that end credit scene was initially meant to be kind of a red herring.
Yeah. And
they didn't even know if they were going to make Avengers until Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it worked out, obviously.
But I would make Man of Steel to where that these other characters are out there. And I don't mean a 30-second clip of them in a computer, like a file. You set up the world, in a small way. And so you have Man of Steel, then I would come out with a Batman movie, because it's still baffling to me that we're in a Justice League DC universe and we still haven't had a Batman movie yet,
right.
Which is ridiculously dumb, but whatever. And for the Batman movie, I wouldn't do any huge villain the Joker, or I would save the Joker for probably a later Batman movie, and then bleed him into a Justice League movie or something like that. But maybe have, I don't want to say the Penguin, because I feel like the Penguin couldn't be too, especially the direction they were heading. I think if you did the Penguin right, it would work, but it would be kind of hard to make a realistic Penguin.
You could do a different take on Penguin, I feel like, but he's already been done well.
Yeah.
But there are so many. You could do Clayface. You could do Mr. Freeze again.
You could even do like the Riddler if you wanted to, or
Right.
like you could do where he has to face like the Riddler as a smaller character that builds into something else. You know what I mean? So.
And Spider-Man Homecoming, they had Vulture, Shocker,
Yeah.
Tinkerer. They had all these people. They set up Scorpion in that movie.
Yeah.
And then in Far From Home, they're going to have Mysterio, and it sounds like Chameleon might be there. So it's like you could have, with Batman, it's the same deal where you could have a one main villain and then like a few side
Smaller
villains.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and they've got Sandman, Molten Man, Hydro Man
Yeah.
in Far From Home, so
Yeah.
you could do something like that, definitely.
You could really set up all these different villains that could pop back up, but you don't really need them. And then
Right.
I would do a Wonder Woman movie after that, and then I would probably do an Aquaman movie and a Flash movie. I wouldn't set up Green Lantern yet. I wouldn't set up Cyborg yet. I would just have your 5 main characters, and then I would have, you know, some threat or something come to where it's just a small team up. Like, not this massive. And, like, you could even have, like, these characters kind of cross over into each other. But I don't mean, like, have Flash show up in the first Superman movie because you don't know who Flash is. But, like, later on, you could have, you know, a Nick Fury-like character coming to talk to them to set them up. Now, I don't mean like that, but you could have people come in and talk to them.
Who should be Batman.
Yes, definitely Batman, but not the way that he did it in Justice League, because that was awful.
Yeah, that was not good.
No.
I hear you talk to fish. he just goes to this random shack in some part of the world
Yes.
that, you know, they never establish where it is.
Not
if I
even in
remember
Aquaman.
correctly. Right. And this guy just comes out of the ocean. And he's like, I hear you talk to fish or something like that.
Yeah. No.
I
guess.
You know, it's like in Avengers, but if it didn't make any sense.
Right.
Which is most of what the DCEU is.
Yes.
It's like something that Marvel did,
It
but
doesn't make sense.
it doesn't make sense.
A lot. It's
and
like
it doesn't work.
Well, I'm not going to say that because that would be very insensitive. I'm not going to say that. Like I would definitely have Batman come up. Like I wouldn't have him in Man of Steel. I would set that up for later. But I would have like Batman show up in the Wonder Woman movie, or not even in the Wonder Woman movie. Have Batman show up in the Flash movie, and have him show up in even the Aquaman movie. I think he could pull in Aquaman, but I think that would work really well for them.
And you need a reason to unify all of these characters apart from, well, I found these 3 on a computer, so let me go talk to them and see if they'll help me out.
Yeah.
With resurrecting Superman. Because there's something coming, I can just feel it, and I feel like I'm going to need a team for something. So let me just assemble this team of metahumans, and I'll just go visit them at their places, and just, I can see how epic Aquaman is. And Wonder Woman goes to visit Cyborg. It's just, it doesn't matter. But in Avengers, you know, you get the whole opening, you get the establishing with Loki, who was already set up in Thor, so Thor already has a reason to be there. And then he kicks the crap and like destroys the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. compound and almost kills Nick Fury and steals Hawkeye, and it's like, okay, we need a team.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it makes sense for all the Avengers to be there.
And I love how they draw in, and we're going off on a different tangent, that's right. But I love how they draw in Avengers for like all these characters to be there. So like you said, Loki would be there. Loki was there that drug in Thor. It was the Cosmic Cube, it was the Tesseract, so that brought in Captain America and basically Tony Stark because his dad worked on it.
Right.
Loki took over Stark Towers when he made the portal thing, you know.
Right.
So
and,
like they drug in all of these characters.
In Iron Man 2, they set up Black Widow, and they set up Tony Stark talking to Nick Fury.
Mm-hmm. And Thor, they set up Hawkeye, and that made sense. So, you know,
yeah, even though he was just there.
He was just
like, look at that guy, we know that guy.
But he was the best part of that movie.
Now, there is an interesting idea here from New World Nerds. The recruiter in Justice League could be just some no-name guy. like Agent Coulson or something like that, and then revealed later it's John Jones,
Yes.
Martian Manhunter.
That
would be
dope.
super sick.
That would be dope. I would be alright with that.
Especially if he was working for Batman.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not like Batman or Bruce Wayne is going to go around approaching these people unless he's Ben Affleck Batman, in which case he's an idiot, so he just does things that don't make any sense. But that would be really cool to have Martian Manhunter kind of working as Batman's agent in a way.
Yeah.
I'd like that a lot.
That would work really well. And you could set him up as... I wouldn't even like set him up necessarily as John Jones in the Batman movie. I would just have him just kind of be like Batman's right-hand man.
Right.
Like Bruce Wayne's right-hand man. But like kind of like the... you could have him be like the Lucius Fox in the Dark Knight series.
Right.
And just like him kind of seem like a throwaway character, and then like the last movie before Justice League, oh snap, that's Martian Manhunter. Like that'd be really cool. That would be really cool. Which man, Marvel, I hate to do this, so I'm doing it again. Marvel, their like shock surprises at the end of movies are great. Like they do a really good job of that. DC has like I was actually kind of shocked that Deathstroke showed up. Like that was pretty cool. Other than that, I haven't done much.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot that they could fix, but
oh yeah, no, and they have such rich characters and such a rich universe that they could do exactly what Marvel's doing.
And it's so weird. It seems like the characters that should mesh the best and work the best don't always work the best on the big screen. Like the Fantastic Four, in essence, should work really well. Still haven't had a good even a decent Fantastic Four movie.
Right.
Like we've had great Batman movies, we've had great Superman movies, we've had a decent Aquaman movie. Had a decent Aquaman movie, we had a decent Wonder Woman movie. You know, so like, but them being brought together hasn't worked very well.
Right.
And so I think you got to find a way to mesh all these characters together and you have to make it make sense, at least like. And I understand it's a comic book movie, not everything's going to make sense. But you still have to make sense as to why they're there together. And I think that's something that they haven't done very well. Mm-hmm. So, do you have any other thoughts or...
Let me...
You actually have notes this time.
So I do have notes. Yes. For the first time ever, I came prepared. Outside projects from kind of outside... Like, you would need the Justice League and the Justice League characters to center your universe. And this isn't copying the Marvel formula, it's just doing something that makes sense. Building a film universe based off of a comic book universe. Because that's exactly what the Justice League are in the DC universe, and same with the Avengers in the Marvel universe, is they're the center of a lot of the main events. Mm-hmm. Even more so with the Justice League, because there's the Teen Titans, and then apart from the Justice Society from another dimension, there are no other major unifying teams. But with Marvel, you have Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four.
Even Guardians to an extent.
Totally. So you need the Justice League to be a unifying presence. Mm-hmm. But after you've set that up, fun side projects, Suicide Squad. You could do Suicide Squad. Blue Beetle, Plastic Man, The Spectre, Dr. Fate, Zatanna, Green Lantern Corps, Booster Gold. Those would all be fun characters to bring to life that you could have kind of in a separate light. And again, they would be creative, creator-led, interesting, engaging projects.
Yeah.
Kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy are to Marvel, like sort of a dark horse. Let's throw this one out there, see if people enjoy it. But you could have so many more of those with DC because it's a much more expansive universe outside of the Justice League.
Yeah.
And again, pros and cons to both DC and Marvel in the comics when you're adapting them to screen. But there are so many fun side projects that you could have based off of B-list, C-list characters.
Yeah.
Apart from what's happening in the main story.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that DC has to do, is that I think they need to start taking risks.
Yes.
They've played everything so safe here recently. And I think that's one thing that you could do, because you have so many characters that you could work with. Take a risk and try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, oh well. Like you can find a way around it. And I think that's what Marvel's done really well. Is like they took a risk with Guardians of the Galaxy, it worked. They took a risk with Ant-Man, and it worked. They took a risk with Doctor Strange, and it's worked. So like they've taken a risk with all of these different characters, not your normal superhero characters, and it's worked.
But only after they've established their credibility.
Right. Yeah, you have to establish your credibility and then do it.
Right, because they established their credibility with Iron Man and with Captain America and with Avengers, and that was the big one. That was the one where people were like, wow, we can really take this seriously, and this is kind of here to stay.
Yeah.
So they waited until after Avengers to do... Winter Soldier was kind of a risk. Guardians was a big risk.
Yeah. Civil War was even a risk, because that's a lot of characters.
Right.
And, like, even characters you haven't necessarily established yet. With Black Panther and with Spider-Man, and Ant-Man had already had a movie.
Thor Ragnarok was a huge departure from what happened before. And Marvel isn't a studio that's like constantly like breaking boundaries and taking risks.
Right.
But
there are a lot of safe movies too.
Right. Right. And they do have not a formula, but they do have like kind of repetitive tones a lot of the times. That makes it easier for them to come together in a movie like Infinity War. But it's not like they don't take those different themes and tones and bring them in interesting directions, especially throughout all of Phase 3.
Yeah.
All of Phase 3 has been, different cultures of filmmaking, different ideas, different presentation, which has been really, really engaging. Thor Ragnarok, Spider-Man Homecoming, Guardians Volume 2, they're all very different movies from each other. Doctor Strange, Civil War, Infinity War, Black Panther, even Ant-Man and the Wasp have all been very much their own thing.
Right.
But that's something that DC could take and apply right from the very beginning, right from the get-go, is taking things in different, fresh, interesting directions.
Yeah. So they just got to take risks. They've got to figure out what they are wanting to tell.
Yes.
They've got to start building the world quickly. Not quickly, but you need to start building the world, building your characters. And I think that's really, if you can find the right actors and the right director, you can make about any movie work. And I think that's one thing that hasn't worked the best for DC, is finding the right the right actors and actresses and the right director to work together and mesh together.
And you've got to give me a great on-screen Mr. Freeze. That's my main thing that I ask of DC, is a great Mr. Freeze, because I love Mr. Freeze so much. And Marvel nailed it with Mysterio already.
Yes.
The Far From Home trailer already sold on Mysterio. Like my favorite Spider-Man villain, one of my favorite Marvel Comics villains. You guys nailed it. I want that for Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
And for Scarecrow.
I'm more of a, I guess not a hipster, but not
that. I'm just kidding.
But like my favorite DC villain is the Joker, because
that's fair.
Basically because of Heath Ledger. Like that, him and Jack Nicholson made me a huge Joker fan.
And Jared Leto.
No, Jared Leto.
And Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill was actually good. I'll give you that one. Mark Hamill I enjoyed. But like, and then in like Marvel, my favorite villain has always been Thanos. So like, I really enjoy being able to see. That's why I love The Dark Knight so much, is because it was the perfect Joker, like the perfect Joker. And then in Infinity War, it was the perfect Thanos. So like I think that's something they haven't nailed very well, is their villains are just as important as their heroes. Because like if you can't nail the villain, then the hero just kind of seems. And I think that was part of the reason why Thor: The Dark World didn't work very well, is because the villain was not like, it's Thor, and then you just have
it was just a nothing character.
Just a nothing character you could throw away. Same thing with Ant-Man. Like the villain in Ant-Man, I don't even remember who he was exactly. I forget what he was called. But what was he?
In Ant-Man? Yellow Jacket.
Yeah. He was crap.
Yeah.
And like
he was just bigger Ant-Man.
Basically. But like all of like our favorite Marvel movies have really good villains.
Loki.
Loki, Winter Soldier. You have Thanos.
I mean, Guardians doesn't exactly apply to that, but still.
No, but even Guardians 2.
Guardians 2, yes.
Yeah, Ego was great.
Totally.
And then like Black Panther, and I'm blanking on his name. Michael B. Jordan.
Killmonger.
Killmonger was fantastic.
Homecoming and Vulture. Vulture is my boy.
Yes.
I love Vulture.
Yeah, like if you set up these villains, and that's why I enjoy like even the Netflix shows. Jessica Jones season 1, Kilgrave was amazing.
Yeah.
Kingpin was amazing.
Bullseye
was amazing. So like you have all of these characters that work, but if they don't have an equal villain, then it's not going to work as well either. And I think that's
totally true.
I think that's something that DC has struggled with completely. So.
Agreed. We do have another comment. So in Man of Steel, when Zod and Superman are destroying Metropolis, Nicole Kidman is in a fish costume at the center of the earth. That is correct. That's absolutely correct. And that's DC continuity. 5 movies in, and that is our DCEU lore that we have. Just really interesting. I'm really interested in both of those plot lines.
Oh, wow.
In both what's happening in Metropolis and Nicole Kidman in a fish costume.
Oh, wow. I think we just finished.
So cool. So cool.
So cool. I think that does it. I think that's the only way that you can end a DC episode. Do you have any other thoughts or comments or?
No, I would encourage people, send us your ideas for a competently put together DCEU, because honestly, I'm sure that any one of our viewers could create something better than than what's happening right now.
Yes.
But I do love hearing ideas on this, because with DC, it's so open-ended. And Marvel's already done something that they've been successful in, but DC, now that they've done something that's failed, we can look at the pieces of it and say, what didn't work?
Yeah.
What would we do instead?
Yeah.
And then I'll also mention that me and you are both going to be posting polls on Twitter.
Yes.
So you guys should go and check those out and vote in those. But that'll be a weekly thing, a recurring thing.
Yes, it will. We'll post those on Thursday. Is that what day we said?
The polls, we'll post them when we're done. So Tuesday nights.
Tuesday nights, and they'll go till. We'll say Monday night, and then...
I think they're 24 hours.
Well, you can set them to...
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So we'll set them for a week. We'll probably do Tuesday to Monday, and then on every Tuesday we'll talk about the polls, read off the winners, things like that. You can comment on it as well. So like you said, we want to hear your ideas. So if you're watching this on YouTube, in the comments below, make sure that you're leaving... We want to hear what you would do different, and we want you to be as... generic as you want or as specific as you want, down to the actors and directors and everything. We love both of those. Also on Twitter, under any of our posts, you can throw us your ideas there as well. We'll look into that.
Totally.
Do you have anything else to plug? Any more cheap plugs?
No.
We are having a video coming out Friday because there is some very exciting news. That we are I'm starting for all of our wrestling fans out there. We are starting something very cool on our channel. We're going to be partnering with another cool channel. They're alright. The other channels are just alright. No, but we're partnering with them. We're going to have a lot of fun. So look forward for that on Friday. But other than that, I think that will do it for this week's episode. You can follow me on Twitter at I'm Andy York. You can follow our podcast on YouTube, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Nerd Crew Podcast. You can email us at nerdcrewpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube, The Nerd Crew. You can also find... No, you can't find Jason on Twitter. Jason said no followers.
Nowhere to be found.
Nowhere to be found. So, just look forward to our polls coming out on... After this episode goes live, we'll come up with a poll, post it out there. Make sure you're looking at that. But for... Jason, I am Andy York. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. We will catch you next week.